The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with golden light and cold laughter. Around the circular chamber sat the representatives of 100 alien races. Each one prided itself on age, power, or conquest. At the center stood a single human, Commander Elias Kane, wearing a dark uniform with the insignia of the Terran Defense Force. He looked out of place. The others were tall, shining, or covered in fine robes and armor. He was plain, ordinary human, the youngest species to ever join the Council, and the least respected. Today the Council had gathered to celebrate victory, the defeat of the Valthari Empire, a powerful race known for their psychic strength and royal arrogance. The Valthari Queen Sarathis had been captured alive after years of war. Her empire lay in ruins, her soldiers scattered. Now she stood before them, bound in silver restraints that suppressed her psychic powers. Her eyes glowed faintly violet, filled with silent rage and grief. The council speaker, a towering insectoid being named Vraxus, tapped his metallic claws on the podium. "Let this be known," he said in a hissing voice, "that the proud Valthari have fallen. Their queen stands before us, dethroned and powerless. Let this serve as a lesson to all who defy the council." Cheers erupted from the audience. Different alien voices joined together, mocking the once great monarch. Vraxus continued, his mandibles clicking with cruel amusement. "And as a sign of our unity," he said, we shall offer this fallen queen as a gift to one of our newest members, to show what becomes of those who overestimate themselves." The hall grew silent for a moment. Everyone turned toward the human commander standing quietly near the edge. "To the human delegate," Vraxus declared, his eyes glittering with mischief. "To Elias Kane of Earth, let this serve as your trophy." Laughter filled the room. Many aliens whispered insults. Humans were new to the stars, weak, short-lived, emotional. Giving a defeated queen to one of them was the council's way of making fun of their naive compassion. Elias didn't react. He didn't laugh, didn't bow, didn't smile. He simply stepped forward and looked at the queen. She was tall, graceful even in chains, with silver markings across her pale skin and hair like starlight. Her gaze met his, cold and distant. "Commander," Vraxus said mockingly, "do you accept your prize?" Elias paused, then gave a single nod. "I accept," he said quietly. The laughter grew louder. They thought he was humiliated. But Elias didn't care. He walked forward, released her from the restraining field, and guided her away from the hall without a single word. The journey back to his ship was silent. The queen didn't speak. She kept her chin high, though her wrists were still bound by silver cuffs. Her pride was bruised, but her spirit was unbroken. Elias led her to a small transport shuttle, not a warship, not a prison, just a modest vessel named Resolute. When they entered, the lights were soft and the air warm. A small crew of humans stood ready, surprised to see their commander bringing an alien prisoner aboard. "Commander, is that?" asked Lieutenant Harper, wide-eyed. "Yes," Elias said simply. "Prepare the med bay." "She's injured." "Injured?" another officer whispered. "Sir, she's the enemy." Elias gave him a sharp look. "And she's also alive," he said. "That's enough." The crew exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. They had fought against the Valthari for years. Many had lost friends and family in that war. Yet their commander was now protecting the very symbol of their enemy. As they treated her wounds, Sarathis said nothing. She watched them with distant curiosity, as if trying to understand these strange creatures who showed kindness instead of cruelty. Humans had defeated many enemies, but never had they treated a captive queen like this. Later, when the ship was quiet, Elias sat across from her in the small mess hall. The room smelled faintly of coffee and metal. He placed a tray before her, a bowl of soup, bread, and water. She looked at it but didn't touch it. "I don't poison people," Elias said calmly. "Eat, you need strength." Her violet eyes narrowed. "You mock me," she said finally, her voice smooth but tired. "You think kindness will break me faster?" Elias shook his head. "No, I just think everyone deserves a meal." She studied him for a long time, then took a slow sip. The taste was strange to her, but she didn't stop. He didn't speak again until she was finished. "Why?" she asked at last. "Why would you help me, human?" "I led armies that burned your colonies." "Because the war's over," he said simply. "And because someone has to stop the cycle." She looked away. His words stirred something unfamiliar in her. Confusion, maybe even shame. In her world, mercy was weakness. But this man spoke as if compassion was strength. Days passed aboard the Resolute. The Queen recovered slowly, her psychic power suppressed but not destroyed. She spent hours staring out the viewport, watching stars drift by like slow embers in the dark. Elias gave her space but also made sure she had food, comfort, and privacy. Sometimes she heard the crew whisper behind her back, calling her the Ghost Queen or the Trophy. But Elias silenced any mockery with a glance. His quiet authority carried more weight than shouting ever could. One evening she found him working alone in the cargo bay, repairing a damaged maintenance drone. He didn't notice her at first. His hands moved steadily, careful and precise. "Your people laugh at you," she said softly. He looked up, wiping grease from his fingers. "I know. And yet you do not send me away." "I won't," he replied. "They gave you to me as a joke. But I don't see jokes when lives are involved." She tilted her head, studying him. "You humans are strange. You win wars with machines, yet you speak of mercy." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why we win." Her expression softened for the briefest moment before she turned to leave. But just before she did, she said, "You repaired your drone with your hands. Why not command someone else to do it?" Elias chuckled. "Because when you fix something yourself, it reminds you that things can be repaired, even after they're broken." She stopped at the door. The word stayed with her long after she left. Weeks turned into months. The Resolute moved between colonies, helping rebuild worlds that had suffered during the Valthari War. Everywhere they went, people stared at the alien queen walking beside a human officer. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Elias had enslaved her. Others said he had fallen under her control. But those who met them in person saw only two people working side by side. Sarathis began to understand small human habits, how they smiled even when tired, how they sang when afraid, how they shared laughter as if it were a weapon against despair. She began to mimic them without realizing it. Small gestures, faint smiles. The more she learned, the more she wondered what strength truly meant. One night, as the ship drifted through silent space, she stood by the viewport. Elias joined her quietly. "Do your people still hate mine?" she asked. "Some do," he admitted. "But hate doesn't last forever. People change." She turned to face him. "You speak as if hope is a weapon," he smiled gently. "Sometimes it is." For the first time since her capture, the Queen smiled. Small, uncertain, but real. It wasn't the smile of royalty or pride. It was the smile of someone remembering what it felt like to be seen, not feared. When the message came from the Galactic Council summoning Elias back, both of them knew what it meant. The Council had grown restless. Their mockery was losing its edge, and whispers about the human and his queen were spreading faster than they liked. But for now, aboard the quiet ship drifting among the stars, there was peace. Two souls, one born of war, the other of compassion, had begun to understand each other. The galaxy had given Elias Kane a fallen queen as a cruel joke. But already something greater was beginning to rise. The Resolute floated between the stars, a small ship carrying two unlikely companions, a human commander and a fallen alien queen. Time had softened the tension between them, but not erased it. Commander Elias Kane worked each day to rebuild damaged colonies and repair old satellites, while Queen Sarathis watched, learning quietly. At first, she refused to join him in his tasks. She had been a ruler, not a worker. But one morning she saw Elias repairing a cracked solar array under the ship's dim lights. Sweat rolled down his forehead as he handled the hot tools. He looked tired yet focused. When she approached, he didn't look up. "Why do you work so hard?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Because if I don't, no one else will." "You have soldiers," she reminded him. "You can order them." "I could," he said, tightening a bolt. "But leadership isn't about giving orders. It's about setting an example." His words stayed with her. That night, when he found her standing in the engine bay, trying to understand a control panel, he didn't interrupt. She was clumsy at first, her long fingers tapping the wrong keys. But Elias only smiled and showed her the right way. "This adjusts the power flow," he explained. "Too much and you'll overload the grid. Too little and the lights go out." "And balance?" she asked. He looked at her. "That's the hardest part, in machines and in life." She repeated his words softly, as if testing them. Balance. Days turned into quiet weeks. The Queen began spending more time with the human crew. Some still distrusted her. They spoke in whispers when she passed. But others started to warm up, especially Lieutenant Harper, who once called her the Ghost Queen. Harper taught her how to use a data tablet and even showed her Earth's music. One evening, Sarathis sat in the mess hall listening to a soft melody playing from Harper's device. It was an old Earth song, gentle and sad. The Queen closed her eyes. This sound, it carries emotion, she said. Harper smiled. That's music for you. Humans put their hearts into it. In my empire, Sarathis said slowly, we had no such thing. We shared thoughts, not sound. We didn't need to sing. Maybe that's why you lost, Harper said lightly, not realizing how sharp her words were. The Queen opened her eyes but didn't look angry. She simply nodded. Perhaps, she said. You fight with guns, but you live with hearts. From the doorway, Elias had been listening. He didn't interrupt, but in that moment he saw something changing. The proud Queen was beginning to understand humanity, not just their strength but their warmth. Later that week, a small transport vessel hailed them, a human relief ship carrying supplies for a nearby colony. The two ships docked together and workers came aboard. Among them were children, laughing and chasing each other through the corridors while their parents loaded crates. Sarathis watched them in silence. Her people had once hidden their children deep underground during the war. They never played so freely. One little girl stopped near her, staring at the Queen's glowing violet eyes. Are you a princess? The child asked boldly. Sarathis blinked, caught off guard. No, she said softly, then smiled faintly. Not anymore, the girl grinned. You look like one. My mom says humans and aliens can be friends now. Sarathis knelt down so their eyes were level. Your mother is wise, she said. Perhaps one day that will be true. The girl giggled and ran off. For the first time in years, the Queen felt something warm inside her chest, a spark of hope she had long forgotten. When Elias joined her, she spoke quietly. Your people, they trust so easily, he nodded. That's our strength. We choose to believe the best in others even when it's risky. And when that trust is broken, she asked, then we rebuild it, he said, the same way we rebuild everything else. She looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. That is a dangerous faith. Maybe, he replied. But it's the only way forward. That night the ship's alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed through the corridors. Elias rushed to the command deck with Sarathis following close behind. Status, he called. Lieutenant Harper pointed at the radar. Unknown ship approaching fast, no identification code. Looks like scavengers or raiders. Power shields, Elias ordered. No weapons unless they fire first. The ship trembled as a plasma shot grazed their hull. Sarathis stepped closer, her voice calm but cold. They will not stop. They think you are weak. Elias glanced at her. Any ideas? She closed her eyes for a moment. Though her psychic powers were still limited by the silver cuffs, she reached out, sensing the raiders' minds. They were desperate, hungry, and frightened. They are not soldiers, she said. Just survivors, Elias hesitated. Then he said, Open comms. A static-filled voice answered, rough and panicked. Human ship, surrender your cargo and no one gets hurt. Elias pressed the transmitter. This is Commander Kane of the Terran Defense Force. We can share our supplies if you stand down. You don't have to steal. There was silence for a moment. Then laughter. You think we trust humans? Before another shot came, Sarathis stepped forward. Let me speak, she said. Elias nodded. She pressed the comm button and spoke in the old Valthari tongue, smooth, commanding, and full of authority. The raiders fell silent. When she switched back to the common language, her voice carried power again. You steal because you are lost, she said. But if you fire again, I will end your fear myself. The comm stayed silent. Moments later, the enemy ship veered off and jumped to warp. The threat was gone. The crew stared in awe. Elias turned to her, half smiling. That worked. Sarathis looked faintly amused. Sometimes fear must serve peace. Elias nodded. Maybe. But next time we'll try words first. She tilted her head. And if words fail? He grinned. Then we'll invent better ones. For the first time she laughed. A soft sound, almost musical. The crew stared, surprised to hear the fallen queen laugh at all. After the incident, something shifted between Elias and Sarathis. They began working together more closely. He showed her human engineering while she taught him about Valthari science. Together they began designing a new kind of reactor core, one that combined human efficiency with Valthari energy patterns. It was during one of those long work sessions that she asked him quietly, "Do you believe humans are special?" Elias thought for a moment. "Not special," he said. "Just stubborn. We make mistakes, but we don't stop trying." She considered this. "In my empire, weakness was punished. Failure meant shame." He looked up from the tools. "Then maybe that's why your empire fell. You stopped learning." Her eyes met his. "And humans never stop?" "Not until we run out of stars," he said. For a long moment, neither spoke. The quiet hum of the ship surrounded them like a heartbeat. In that silence, something unspoken grew. Not romance, not yet, but respect. Deep, real respect. A week later, a transmission arrived from the Galactic Council. Elias read it with a frown. The Council demanded that the Queen be returned to them immediately for further evaluation. It was a polite way of saying they wanted her imprisoned again. When Sarathis saw his expression, she asked, "What will you do?" Elias sighed. "If I obey, they'll lock you away forever. If I refuse, they'll strip me of my command." She stepped closer. "You owe me nothing, Commander." He met her gaze. "Maybe not, but I owe myself the truth. And the truth is you don't belong in a cage." For a moment, her royal pride broke and her voice softened. "Why do you care so much for me, a fallen queen of your enemy?" He smiled gently. "Because it's the human way." That night, Sarathis couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, staring at the endless stars. Once she had ruled over 1,000 worlds. Now she was just one traveler among many. But for the first time in her long life, she didn't feel alone. When Elias joined her quietly, she spoke without turning. "You are different from all others I have met, Elias Kane." He shrugged. "Maybe I'm just too stubborn to hate." She looked at him then, really looked. The stars reflected in her violet eyes. "Perhaps that is why humans will one day rule the stars," she said softly. "Not with power, but with heart." And for the first time, Elias didn't feel like a soldier or a pawn of the council. He felt like a bridge between what was broken and what could still be rebuilt. The galaxy had given him a fallen queen as a cruel joke. But through the human way, she was beginning to rise again. Months had passed since the Resolute left the council's capital. The stars beyond human space grew brighter, and the small ship had become a place of learning, hope, and quiet transformation. Commander Elias Kane and Queen Sarathis now worked together side by side every day. They were no longer enemies nor strangers. Something greater connected them now, a shared purpose neither of them had expected. But while peace filled their small ship, the galaxy beyond was stirring. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, whispers spread like wildfire. The joke that once entertained them, the human and his alien trophy bearer, was no longer funny. Reports came in. The Queen was alive, active, and working with the human who was supposed to humiliate her. The insectoid speaker, Vraxis, slammed his clawed hand on the council table. She was given as a symbol of defeat, and now this human turns her into a partner? Into a voice of unity? Other members muttered among themselves. "They say she visits colonies and speaks to refugees," said a reptilian senator. "They say human colonies welcome her as one of their own," hissed another. Vraxis narrowed his eyes. "It seems the humans' weakness, their compassion, is infecting others." Across the stars, change was happening quietly. Where humans worked to rebuild broken worlds, Sarathis spoke to alien survivors, those left behind by the Council's endless wars. Her words were calm but powerful. "I was once a queen who ruled through fear," she told them. "Now I have met a species that rules through kindness, and it is stronger than all my armies ever were." Those words spread across the galactic network faster than any fleet could move. The message of the fallen queen and the human commander began to echo among forgotten colonies. The council had given Elias a mockery. Now that mockery was becoming a movement. Aboard the Resolute, Elias didn't seek fame. He didn't even know how wide their story had spread. His days were filled with repairs, negotiations, and endless travel to small, broken worlds. But Sarathis knew. She could feel it. Through faint telepathic whispers across the stars, she sensed the awakening of millions who now believed that change was possible. One evening, she entered the control deck where Elias was studying a navigation chart. He didn't notice her at first. His eyes were tired but determined. "You have become a symbol," she said softly. He looked up. A symbol of what? Hope, she replied. Something this galaxy has not seen in a long time. Elias smiled faintly. I didn't plan that. Humans rarely plan their greatness, she said. It simply happens when they do what is right. He laughed gently. That sounds like a compliment. It is, she said. Do not let it make you proud. Pride destroyed my empire. He nodded, serious again. And humility might just save ours. The Resolute landed on the planet Heska-4, a world once ruled by the Valthari but now left in ruins. The ground was scorched, cities half buried in ash. Yet among the ruins lived thousands of refugees, both Valthari and human settlers who had come to rebuild. As they stepped out, many bowed to Sarathis, but she raised a hand. No titles, she said. Not here. We build together. The human smiled and the Valthari hesitated, but seeing her work beside Elias, lifting supplies and helping children, broke the old walls of pride. The sight of the once mighty queen working in the dust humbled them all. Later, as they rested under the remains of an ancient tower, Elias handed her a flask of water. She took it with quiet gratitude. My people once believed that only strength deserved respect, she said. But I see now that strength without mercy is emptiness. Elias nodded. And mercy without strength is helpless. We need both. She looked at him, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. You are a strange man, Elias Kane, he chuckled. You say that every day. Because it is true every day. Back in orbit, danger was already approaching. A small council warship had been tracking them for weeks. The council wanted the Queen returned or silenced. Captain Vrax's enforcer, a cold machine named Admiral Serok, received direct orders. Retrieve the Queen. Kill the human if necessary. When the Resolute detected the ship, Elias frowned. That's a council signal. They found us, Sarathis stood beside him. They fear us now, she said. They see what we are building. Elias took a deep breath. Fear makes them dangerous. The enemy hailed them. A hollow voice filled the speakers. Commander Kane, you are in violation of Council Directive 9B. Turn over the Valthari prisoner immediately. Elias replied calmly. She's not a prisoner. Then you are a traitor, the voice said coldly. Sarathis stepped forward. No, they are traitors, to the ideals they claim to defend. Elias cut the transmission and looked at her. Are you ready? She nodded. I was born ready to fight for what matters. The battle was short but intense. The Resolute was smaller, but Sarathis guided their moves with her regained psychic sense, predicting enemy attacks. Elias commanded the crew with calm precision, every word measured. Shield rotation now. Redirect power to forward thrusters, he ordered. A plasma beam grazed their hull, shaking the ship. Sparks flew across the control deck. But Elias didn't panic. Harper, lock target on their weapon core. Fire. Low yield. The shot hit perfectly, disabling the enemy's main cannon. Smoke filled the council warship. Serok's voice returned, distorted with static. You cannot defy us, human. Elias answered firmly. Watch me. With one final strike, the council ship's engines shut down. Elias didn't destroy them. He could have, but he didn't. He ordered the crew to send a rescue beacon instead. When Sarathis looked at him puzzled, he simply said, We fight hard, but we never forget who we are. She smiled softly. The galaxy will never understand your kind. Then we'll just have to teach them, he replied. The next day, news of the battle spread fast. The council called Elias a dangerous rebel. But to the people of the outer colonies, he became something more, the human who fought without hate. Messages began arriving through encrypted channels, from miners, soldiers, refugees, even Valthari survivors. They wanted to join. They called themselves the Alliance of Dawn, named after the light that always returns after darkness. Sarathis stood beside Elias as he read the messages. They believe in you, she said. He shook his head. They believe in us. She turned to the viewport, gazing at the stars. When I was queen, I ruled through control. Now without a throne, I command more hearts than ever. How strange life is. Elias looked at her thoughtfully. Maybe this was what you were meant to be, not a ruler, but a guide. She smiled faintly. And you, Elias Kane, what are you meant to be? He chuckled softly. I'm just a man who refuses to let the galaxy stay broken. That night, the Resolute drifted silently in orbit. The stars stretched endlessly ahead. Sarathis walked through the quiet corridors until she found Elias sitting alone, looking out into the void. "You do not rest much," she said. He smiled tiredly. "Too many people counting on me." She sat beside him. For a long time they said nothing. Then she spoke softly. "When I first met you, I thought you were a fool, a man who did not understand power. And now?" he asked. "Now I see that you understand it better than anyone I've ever known." He looked out at the stars. "Power isn't about control. It's about choice. The choice to protect, to forgive, to keep going when it would be easier to give up." She nodded slowly. "Then perhaps the galaxy has never truly known power. Until now." In the following weeks, the Resolute became the heart of a growing movement. Human engineers worked beside Valthari scientists, building new ships that combined both their technologies. For the first time in centuries, former enemies shared laughter and plans instead of bloodshed. But deep within the Council, fear was spreading faster than hope. They saw humans and Valthari joining hands and they trembled. The joke they had made, giving a human a fallen queen, was no longer amusing. It was dangerous. Braxis slammed his claws down again. "End them," he ordered, "before the infection of humanity spreads any further." And so, in the shadowed halls of power, the next storm began to rise. On the Resolute, unaware of the Council's plotting, Elias and Sarathis stood together in silence, watching the dawn rise over a distant world, a small planet shining golden in the dark. "It's beautiful," Sarathis whispered. "Every new dawn is," Elias said. Even when it follows the darkest night, the galaxy had begun to change, and for the first time the old empires were afraid. The Resolute sailed through the stars like a quiet storm. In its small hold, engineers worked tirelessly, humans and Valthari together, designing ships that no single species had built before. The Council had underestimated what one human and one alien queen could achieve when they shared knowledge instead of power. Commander Elias Kane stood on the observation deck, watching the glowing lights of a nearby star reflect off Sarathis's violet eyes. She had changed since their first meeting, her shoulders no longer stiff with pride, her voice calmer, her heart slowly opening to the human way. "Do you ever miss being queen?" Elias asked. Sarathis considered the question. "I miss the certainty," she said slowly. "When you rule with fear, everyone obeys, but I prefer this," she added, gesturing toward the crew, the engineers, and the colonies they helped rebuild. "This is harder, but it feels right." Elias nodded. "That's why humans survive. We may be fragile, but we lift each other up. That's stronger than fear." She studied him in silence, then smiled faintly. "You teach me many things, Elias Kane, perhaps more than any empire ever could." The Alliance of Dawn, as they called it, was no longer just a small movement. Word spread across the galaxy. A human commander and a fallen queen had created a force that fought with mercy and skill, not cruelty and dominance. Colonies once lost to despair were now centers of innovation, where humans and Valthari worked side by side, repairing worlds, sharing knowledge, and protecting the weak. In a quiet planning room aboard the Resolute, Elias and Sarathis pored over maps and star charts. "The Council will strike eventually," Elias said. "We need to unite more colonies before they do." Sarathis tapped a star on the map. "Here is HFY 4. It already responds to our leadership. If we extend our reach to nearby systems, we can create a network, a chain of hope they cannot break." "Hope," Elias repeated with a grin. "I like that word." They traveled from system to system, showing what humans and Valthari could achieve together. Bridges were built, trade routes reopened, and schools for children, human and alien alike, were established. Everywhere they went, people watched as the fallen queen worked beside a human, lifting crates, helping engineers, and speaking gently to children. On one colony, Sarathis knelt beside a child whose arm had been injured in a collapsed building. Using a combination of human medicine and Valthari psychic healing techniques, she eased the child's pain. The parents watched silently, some in awe, some in disbelief. "Is she still a queen?" asked a young mother. "Yes," Elias said quietly. "But she chooses to use her strength to protect, not control. That's what makes her different." The first real challenge came when a council fleet entered the Outer Rim. Warships darkened the stars like shadows, prepared to destroy the growing alliance. Elias and Sarathis knew diplomacy would not work this time. The council could not understand their new way of leadership. Elias, we cannot match them ship for ship, Sarathis said. They are too powerful. No, Elias replied, but we can match them heart for heart. They gathered their fledgling fleet, a mix of human ships and Valthari vessels rebuilt with new technology. Sarathis used her psychic ability to synchronize movements, while Elias commanded with human precision. Each ship moved as if part of one mind. When the Council fleet arrived, the battle began. But unlike traditional fights, the Alliance did not aim to destroy indiscriminately. They disabled enemy weapons, targeted engines to force retreat, and used shields to protect civilians. The Council expected easy victory. Instead, they met a force that fought with intelligence and mercy. During the battle, a Council flagship cornered a human ship, ready to destroy it. Sarathis reached out mentally, sensing the fear and panic within the Council commander. She sent a message, calm and clear. Surrender now and your people will live. The commander hesitated, confused by the alien queen speaking not with rage, but with mercy. It was enough. The flagship disengaged, leaving the Alliance fleet unscathed. The victory was not just tactical, and it was symbolic. It showed that humans and Valthari could fight together without hate, and that compassion could be a weapon stronger than fire. After the battle, Elias addressed the newly gathered fleet. We are not here to conquer, he said. We are here to protect. Not through fear, not through hatred, but through courage, wisdom, and heart. Sarathis stepped beside him. The Council believed that fear ruled the galaxy. They underestimated the power of cooperation and trust. We rise because we care, and we lift others higher than they have ever been lifted. The fleets cheered. Not just the humans, not just the Valthari, but many who had once been oppressed or ignored. It was a moment that marked the true beginning of the Alliance of Dawn. Weeks later, Elias and Sarathis visited a system destroyed by Council wars. Cities were in ruins, crops had failed, and people had nothing left to hope for. But under their guidance, the colonies rebuilt. Human engineers and Valthari scientists worked together to restore energy grids, purify water, and plant new fields. Children laughed in the streets, their parents working side by side. Sarathis watched them, her violet eyes reflecting the golden sun. This is what I never knew I could do, she said softly. I once ruled by command. Now I lead by example. Elias looked at her. The galaxy doesn't need rulers anymore. It needs builders, she nodded. And perhaps the builders are stronger than the kings. As the Alliance grew, word of their success reached corners of the galaxy the Council could not control. Many species once loyal to the Council now reached out for guidance. They wanted to join the Alliance, not out of fear, but because they believed in its principles. The Council, in response, tried to sabotage communications, spread lies, and even attack isolated colonies. But every attempt failed. Elias and Sarathis had created something deeper than fleets or weapons. They had created a vision that could not be destroyed. Even Council spies reported back in awe. The human and the queen. They inspire loyalty in ways we cannot understand. Even our soldiers hesitate. Vraxis slammed his clawed hand in anger. They turn even our own against us. This is impossible. And it was. The joke the Council had made, giving a fallen queen to a human, had created a force far stronger than they could imagine. Elias and Sarathis knew the work was only beginning. The Alliance had grown, but threats remained. The Council would not give up easily. And yet, the queen who had once been defeated stood taller than ever, beside the human who refused to yield. One evening, Elias watched Sarathis help a group of Valthari children rebuild a playground. He thought about how far they had come, from mockery to inspiration, from defeat to leadership. You have changed more than any queen I have ever known, he said. And you, Elias Kane, she replied, have shown me that humanity is more powerful than I ever believed. Not because of strength, not because of weapons, but because of heart, he smiled. Then let's keep building. She looked out at the horizon. Yes, let's build a galaxy that does not fear humans or aliens, only the possibilities of hope. The Alliance of Dawn was no longer small. It stretched across systems, blending human courage and Valthari wisdom. Colonies rebuilt, fleets united, and even the smallest voices found respect. For the first time, many in the galaxy realized humans were not weak. They were builders, teachers, healers, and leaders, the spark that could unite worlds. And in every corner where the Alliance reached, people remembered the story, a fallen queen given as a cruel joke, and the human who lifted her higher than anyone else. The galaxy had changed. What began as a cruel joke, a fallen queen handed to a human commander, had become a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. The Alliance of Dawn stretched across dozens of star systems, blending human determination with Valthari wisdom. The once powerful Galactic Council had underestimated what compassion, strategy, and trust could achieve together. Aboard the Resolute, Commander Elias Kane stood at the observation deck, looking out at the rising light of a distant sun. Beside him, Queen Serathis watched quietly, her violet eyes reflecting the stars. The two had been through battles, long voyages, and countless negotiations. Yet here in the calm they were not soldier and queen. They were equals, bound by experience and purpose. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly, turning to him. "Regret what?" he said, brushing a hand across the railing. "Taking me in," she said, "when the council gave me to you as a joke. You could have ignored me, or worse." He smiled faintly. "I could have, but that wouldn't have changed anything. And you are not a joke." She studied him. "You treat everyone with respect, even those who deserve none. Humans are strange creatures." Elias chuckled. "Strange, yes. But we survive." "And yet it seems we thrive," she replied, her tone half amused. The Resolute descended to the planet Lyria Prime, a colony recently freed from council oppression. Fields of green stretched across the plains, cities rebuilt with care, and children played freely under the sun. Humans and Valthari worked. Side by side, engineers, farmers, scholars, and soldiers united. Serathis walked among them, kneeling to help a child adjust a broken toy, her hands gentle despite her tall frame. She smiled when the child laughed. In that moment, she felt something she had not felt in centuries: belonging. Elias followed, watching her interact with the people. Every gesture, every word inspired trust. And everywhere he looked, he saw respect for humans growing. The people had learned that humans were not small, weak, or naive. They were builders, leaders, and protectors. "Your presence changes everything," Elias said quietly, stepping beside her. She shook her head. "It is your heart, Elias Kane. You lift me, yet I feel I lift others with you. Together, we are stronger than we ever were apart." At the edge of the colony, a council ship appeared, their final attempt to regain control. But this time, the Alliance was ready. Hundreds of ships, a mix of human and Valthari design, filled the skies. The council fleet fired, expecting to crush the opposition easily. Elias stood on the command bridge of the Resolute, eyes focused. "Defensive formation Delta," he ordered. "Protect the colonies. Do not engage unless fired upon." Serathis joined him, her psychic powers fully restored. She extended her awareness across the battlefield, sensing the intentions of the council commanders. "They hesitate," she said. "They are unsure. They fear what they cannot control." Elias nodded. "Then we show them control they cannot take by force." The Alliance moved as one. Human ships executed coordinated maneuvers with Valthari precision. Beams of energy danced across space, disabling enemy weapons without unnecessary destruction. Civilians in orbit were safe. The battle was fierce, but unlike any the galaxy had seen. It was a fight of skill, trust, and courage, not hatred. In the midst of the battle, a council flagship targeted the Resolute. Plasma beams cut across the void, shaking the ship. Elias remained calm, issuing precise commands. "Serathis," he called. "We need a shield cascade." "Now." The Queen focused, extending her psychic energy. Waves of protective force enveloped the ship, absorbing the attacks. She felt Elias's focus beside her, human strategy combined with her strength. Together, they were unstoppable. "Counterstrike ready," she said. "Aim for their engines. Non-lethal, but effective." Elias nodded. "Fire." The beams hit perfectly, disabling the enemy flagship's propulsion. Confusion spread among the Council ships. For the first time, they faced an enemy that fought without malice, without rage, and without cruelty, an enemy whose power lay in unity. The remaining Council ships retreated, unwilling to face the Alliance again. Across the galaxy, colonies watched the battle unfold, inspired by the human and the Queen, who fought not to conquer, but to protect. After the battle, Elias and Sarathis walked across Lyria Prime's restored fields. The air was filled with laughter, birdsong, and the hum of machinery. For the first time in generations, people lived without fear of oppression. A young Valthari boy approached them, holding a small model of a starship. "We built this together," he said proudly. "Humans and Valthari." Sarathis knelt, smiling warmly. "You are learning well. The galaxy will be brighter because of you." Elias ruffled the boy's hair. "And never forget, strength is not just about power. It's about helping others rise." The boy nodded, eyes wide with understanding. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elias and Sarathis stood on a hill overlooking the colony. The wind whispered through the tall grass. "You have done more than I could have imagined," Sarathis said softly. "This alliance, it is stronger than any throne, any army." Elias looked at her, his expression serious. "The Council gave you to me as a joke, but together, we made something they could not anticipate. Hope." She turned to him, violet eyes glinting. "I once thought power was control. Now I know power is lifting others, and you taught me that." He smiled faintly. "We lift each other, Sarathis. That's what makes humans human." For a long moment, they stood in silence. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, filled with stars and possibilities. A fallen queen and a human commander had changed the course of history. Together they had shown that courage, compassion, and unity could overcome fear and hatred. Weeks later, the Alliance formally declared its presence across the galaxy. Colonies that had been abandoned were now protected, trade routes reopened, education flourished. And at the heart of this new movement were two figures who had risen from mockery to leadership. In the capital of the Alliance, a statue was erected, not of conquest, not of dominance, but of cooperation. It depicted a human and a Valthari queen standing side by side, hands raised together in unity. Inscribed beneath were the words, "They gave him a fallen queen as a joke. He lifted her higher than anyone else." The story spread across star systems. Children grew up hearing it. Humans and aliens alike remembered that even in the darkest times, one person's compassion could change the galaxy. One evening, aboard the Resolute, Elias and Sarathis looked out at the stars. The galaxy was no longer silent with fear. It was alive with hope. "You think this will last?" Sarathis asked, her voice soft. Elias shrugged. "Nothing lasts forever. But the choices we make now, they set the path. And I think we've chosen well." Sarathis smiled, placing a hand on the railing beside him. "Then let us continue to lift others. For as long as we can." He nodded. "As long as we can." In the quiet of the stars, the fallen queen and the human commander stood together. They had faced mockery, war, and doubt. And now, they were legends. Not for destruction, not for conquest, but for showing the galaxy what it meant to be truly human, and what it meant to rise together. The galaxy would never forget them. The stars shone a little brighter that night, as if acknowledging the triumph of courage, compassion, and unity.